Hey guys, so we're back. And it is time to start building some of these components. We're going to start with the header because, that's the very first thing on the top. So we're going to go on with that. All right, so open up your header. Okay, you can close the footer, theme, sure. Yeah, all of this. Just close all of that. We're going to work on the header for a while. We'll inject it later once we have at least a little something going on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do basically is, obviously, this is going to be a React file, right? So this is actually going to be something that is going to be rendered on the browser. Therefore, it will have to use React. So we're going to import React. That's the first thing we want to do. Import React from React. I can't believe I didn't do that. Oh, no, I don't need that. All right, so import React from React. So that's the first thing you want to do. Okay. So the next thing you want to do is create your actual component class, right? That you're going to be using for your header. So you're gonna do a const, because everything that you, like I said earlier, anything that you want to put out, it has to live somewhere in a variable, or you have to put it somewhere in order to deploy it to anywhere else. And then we're going to use a little bit of syntax, ES6 syntax here. This fat arrow syntax is called. This is the same thing as adding a function, okay, but in the ES6 fat arrow style. Makes things a lot easier, a lot faster. In here you can add properties, arguments rather. So it works. All right. Of course it does. Okay, and obviously anything that you create, never forget you have to export it. If you don't export it, then you'll never be able to use it anywhere. What am I doing? I must have pressed the Alt. I'm used to the Mac, and I just recently not lost, but got rid of my Mac. It broke basically. So I'm using a Windows now, and I just can't seem to get used to this Windows keyboard. It's crazy. The Alt, I keep pressing the Alt key, and the Alt key is not, the Alt. It's the control, the command key in a Mac. So it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm getting used to this, but anyway, so default. Plus, I've never been a really good person, a really good typist anyway, so, but whatever. I'm just making excuses for myself because I like doing that. All right, so now we have the general structure. This, what you see here, is the very absolute general structure of a React file, okay, with the exception of the return, obviously. So sorry about that. I'm going to add that down, and then it will be the absolute. There we go. Just to even make it better, let me make an empty container. There we go. Hi. There we go. All right. So this is the very, very, very absolute way of creating a React component, or anything that, page component, whatever you want to name it, a React file. Okay. You got to import it, and you got to export. You import the properties that you want to use, in this case React. Export your component, name it, make sure that your component name and your export are the exact same. If you change that to 2, then obviously now you're not exporting anything. You need to export 2 for it to work. So make sure that that is always matching. This right here is just a pure ES6 syntax for a function that is going to also have some properties here as an argument if you need to, and many times you will. And inside here you can declare a bunch of functions, and we're actually going to a bunch of functions and and variables and other instances of things, and even smaller views that are going to be generated within the component. They're all going to be in here. And then this is your actual rendering block, where you're going to use your where you're going to return. So basically, once you create everything, I want you to do So React, I want you inside of header, I want you to, look at all this logic that I'm going to add here. And once you take all that in consideration, I want you to return this high here, or whatever I put in here that is going to use the functions that I'm going to add in this portion in here. Okay, and once all of that is rendered and packaged up and running, then I want you to export it inside this thing called header, and then someone else in here, maybe the layout, will be able to import this header in their file and be able to use it because I exported it here and everything is running. So that's basically how it works. Okay, and that's how it's going to work on every component that we're going to do. So now that we know that this is the main structure, the first thing that we're going to do in the header, for the header, is we're going to have to import some other things that we're going to be using. So first thing I'm going to want to import is going to be my, let's just import material UI stuff first, and then I'll talk about the link and all that good stuff. So I'm going to import my app bar. Actually, you know what? Let's do it this way. Let's come over here and let's look at the component that we want to add. Let's start with this. Let's start it this way instead. So this is a simple app bar with some button here, a name or whatever. This is another one that I'm using. Actually, this is the actual one that I started using. So wondering if I should, let's use this one because it has this menu button, and I am actually using that for my menu. There you go. So so let's use that one. Cool. Alright, so if this is the primary search bar that you want to use, okay, so you hit the code here, and it already gives you, we're using JavaScript on this one, we're not using TypeScript. I mean, we could use TypeScript, but we'll have to compile it because TypeScript, has to be compiled into JavaScript and all that. So you can see here that there is some stuff here to be used. There's this fade, make styles, there is this app bar, toolbar, icon, blah, 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 blah. All of these components are being used in there. We are actually going to use a lot of these. So let's just go over the components first, and let's just import all of this stuff on here, and then we'll get rid of whatever we don't need to, we're not going to use. Okay, so we got that. And then we have this use styles, which I'll explain what that is in a minute. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these styles to here. Yep. We're gonna put that in there as well, just under it. Okay, just minimize it for now. Okay, moving on, and now we are at the, right here. So before the return, don't get to the return part, before the return. So this right here, all the way until before the return. Keep going, a little more, push it right here to here. Okay, we're gonna pick all that up. And that is actually going to be part of the component before the return. So we're going to put that in there like that. Open up some space. I'm going to minimize some of this stuff so we can address it one at a time. We're not going to need, trust me, we're not going to need a lot of this stuff. Alright, so now that we get that, we can go to the return now, and here we go. And then the return, we're going to get, and just grab everything. Oops, come on. Right here. So it's basically this div, this huge div, right up until it closes above like that. And we're gonna use that in here where the high is. Alright, cool. So now let's come over here. As you can see, now all of these are being used, all of this stuff, everything supposed to be. So what happens if we run it now? Let's just go ahead and control save that. Okay, this app bar should be good to go. It should be running, but it's not being used anywhere. So if we look at this, it's still nothing. See that? It's not being used anywhere. But the header works. The header is already working. Okay, so now we can actually use this header. We can actually go to our layout and import it and use it there. So if we go to our layout now and we import our header, just like we were, I had it already done here. So uncomment that, and we're going to import our header from our component header. Now this is not going to call anything because this is calling header folder, but not the header file. Header. There we go. So now it's calling header. Might as well just do this one for the footer because I know that's how it's going to work as well. So, but we're not going to use it just yet. We don't need that. All right. So import header from the components header. Okay. Components header. There you go. Okay. So now that we're doing that, now we can actually import, and we're going to import our header right above our main injection. So here, header, and it could be a self-closing tag, just like that. Okay, simple enough. For right now, just get rid of this main. We're not gonna really need that because otherwise it's going to inject that main tag everywhere. I want to have more control on that main tag, so I'd rather not do that. Alright, so if we save this now, and your header is already working, and now we get errors. Alright, let's see, maybe it just needs to be refreshed. Yeah, so it just needed to be refreshed. So let's see what we got here. No, actually, something did fail. All right, let's see what failed. So, component header, material icon, notification. Okay, so what failed here is that we don't have the UI icons installed. Yep, we don't have the icons installed. So we have to download or install, rather, our material UI icon. So I'm just gonna go ahead and open a new one here, and let's go to here and let's go to the search, get started, installation, and look for icons right here, material npm install material UI icon. So I'm just gonna copy that and come over here and do that. Okay, so we can do that one now. And eventually we're going to change these icons anyway from a different library that is not this one. But for right now, we use this one just so it can run. There is a way better library that I want you guys to have access to, and I'll explain that later. It has way more icons than Material UI, than the regular Material UI icons, and it's maintained by a lot of other people, a lot of other designers and developers. So I like that one. All right. So I'm gonna hit enter on that, wait for it to do this magic. Alright, so why did it fail? Let's talk about why it failed. So right here, where you see these icons right here, it's basically saying, hey, import this menu icon from the Material UI icons library called menu and search. But because it didn't exist, obviously, none of these icons really, worked. So all of these icons were pretty much returning 404. Should be working after this is done. I know that there's nothing wrong with the actual header because we used it exactly as we saw in the Material UI website. We didn't change anything to it yet, so everything should be working fine. But there could be some, we have all of Material UI core, so all of this should be working fine. Alright, so while that is downloading and installing, yours is probably going a little faster than mine because my computer is kind of slow. Alright, there you go. Good. Alright, so now let's check on the site again. Let's hit a refresh. What's going on? Let's just recompile. Stop that and Gatsby develop and recompile. Sometimes you need to recompile in order for everything that you loaded up, your npms and stuff like that, all your node packages um, to be recompiled into that public folder, and then your browser will be able to put it out. So, and sometimes your cache is malfunctioning. So if you're absolutely sure that there's nothing going on with your build and it's just something else or whatever that gets stuck, you can remove this cache and then just have everything rebuilt from scratch. Okay, here we go. Works. As you can see now, we have a header and it's purple, and we have all the stuff, and we have this menu item that is working now. So now things are starting to get, starting to become alive, huh? It's pretty cool stuff. All right, so we're not going to be using a lot of this stuff, so we're going to get rid of some of the stuff as well. But before we get rid of it up here and actually break stuff, let's just see first on the code what we are actually going to need. So inspecting the code a little bit at a time. Just move this a little bit to the side here. So inspecting the code a little bit at a time. So we have our main thing. We have our main. Let's just call this up. Close this up here. So we have a main div here that wraps the entire thing. We don't need this ones here, so we can just close. Take this off and back tab this. And then we have this main div that wraps everything. And this is normal because in the React component, you want to have a div that wraps everything else inside. If this didn't exist, and you can have one, two, and three, these three children in the same level running without a parent wrapper. You need a wrapper div. So this is very common. This is very normal. And if you didn't have one, then you needed to add what I had before, or add a div if you want to. So the first thing you have here is a div that has a class name called grow. So where is this coming from, and what is this class name? Because the way that you've probably seen in HTMLs is like this. Okay, so that is HTML, but in JSX we use this syntax to attach a class name, and then you can attach class names in different ways. You can attach it like this, and that will be a class called grow that will exist in a CSS somewhere. Right? But in this case, we're not doing it this way. In this case, we are using it with this string interpolation that we can see here, this brackets here, this variable interpolation, which is basically calling this class grow as the class. And where is that coming from? It's basically from here. So this classes that you see here is this classes here. So we're basically instantiating here in this variable the styles that we want to use, and this is all Material UI syntax that is available for us. So I want to make these styles that are basically coming from the theme, but I want to make different overrides to it that are going to be used at page level only, and I'm going to store that into this variable called uStyles. This is just a name. You want to name that to whatever you want to name it. You can name it uStyles 2, then you're just gonna have to come over here and change it there as well. But it's just a name. And then once you have it already stored into this variable, then now you can call it inside your component and pass it to this classes right here. So this is a little bit of inheritance right here. So this is your parent. And then this is going to be the one that is going to inherit all of this to create different objects of it. So now you're going to use this classes right here, which inherits all of the stuff that is included in here, and you're going to make different objects with it. You're going to use one here to make, and then use the grow, and then you're going to make another one here and call the menu button, and then the title, and all of this stuff. All that stuff is basically pulling these properties from here. The menu button, the grow, the title, you saw all that. Okay, all that stuff is in here. And then basically what I have in there are the same CSS stuff that you saw on the theme file. If you remember, we did all this stuff in the theme file. It's basically the same thing, but remember I said this is a global effect. It will affect the entire website. This one right here is basically the same thing that I did in the theme file, but only for the header. It would only affect the header. It will not affect anywhere else. So I can still use this grow class in another page and name it flex grow 3, and it will not make the header flex grow 3. It will keep the header flex grow 1, because this one is for the header, and everywhere else that I call flex grow 3 will be for that whatever it is that I'm using. So now that we have this working, we can go ahead and clean up a little bit, and I just wanted to go over what some of these things are. So this right here is basically for making sure that the mobile view for the button is working, this like that, and same thing, all of this stuff. So and then this is the actual menu item, like that, render menu. So now that you see where all of this is coming from, we're going to go ahead and stop here, and then we're going to continue on the next one, on the next video, and actually create the real one and give, clean up some of the stuff and actually create some real stuff on the other one. All right, guys. All right, see you on the next one.